And to do that, we're going to have a different conversation, because this is no longer about which disorders you have. That dog will not hunt. It's
Mhm.
about what are the processes that liberate people mentally, but also socially,
Mhm.
also in terms of how they are interacting with the physical world. Even having language for that is hard, because we've been through 150 years of learning how to categorize people. We have not been through 150 years of learning how to empower people.
Mhm.
So it goes all the way back to the earliest decisions: who's smart, who's dumb, who's mentally ill, who isn't, etc. And it was driven by statistics that created those bell curves, but didn't tell you how to move towards the tips of the distributions.
It just said that you're stuck there almost,
Just
that
says
this
you're
is how it
stuck
is.
there, and it actually is based on a false belief that Galton had and those who followed, which is your where you are in the bell curve predicts your future. That's why the SAT tests before you go into college, and it turns out that it's based on a mathematical flaw. I won't have time today to walk you through it, but I can just tell you this. Uh, I'll just and maybe come close to, we're a little bit beyond an hour, but to wind this down another way. This might shock people enough to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to think about this differently. All of these categories that we're so comfortable with in the kitchen table conversation about the behavioral sciences that have created a world where we can't use it to do what it needs to do, and things like peace, things like taking care of the planet, things like fairness and justice, and how to put it into our politics. Uh, the statistics that tell you at the kitchen table that it's really important that Junior was admitted into gifted and talented, or really sad when they're in special ed for people who are not, or the ones that tell you that this mental health diagnosis, but not this medical diagnosis means, oh, gee, George has this and Uncle George has that. And, oh my God, well, we should feel sorry for him. He has major depression, but no, the reason those tools are like that, do you know the word normal wasn't in the English language until 1848?
Mhm.
It was there only because of mathematics until the 1860s. And then it came in for a different purpose. It came in from the early stats that said being on the tips of the distribution are great, because you're on the right tip, because it predicts your future. That's Galton. He invented the standard deviation. He didn't invent the bell curve, but he showed how it worked. And the statisticians that followed built that out into a world where, when you knew what was different between people, you could project their future.
Which
Who,
is not the case.
which is not the case for the reasons that I've been talking about, but I'm not going to be able to do deep dive of. But this may be enough of a shock to say, time to listen. If I ask the question, okay, well, who were the professors of these early biostats that now has taken over the world, so you can hardly have a kitchen table conversation without using the word normal? Just
Yeah.
listen to your conversations with friends, and normally you'll be talking about what's normal when you talk about the futures of people. So 1848 shows up in the as an English word frequently used. Go look at Ngram and you can see the curve, if you know how to do that with Google. Well, let's say the people like the R.A. Fisher, or Frank Yates, or Carl Pearson. Pearson's R, correlation. Fisher's Z, the way of looking at uh, another way of looking at data, the Yates correction of chi-square. If you've ever taken a stat class, you hear all these names of these early biostatisticians who taught us how to think about normal and use it to predict our futures. What were they professors of?
I have no idea.
You'd think statistics or mathematics, right?
Right? Makes sense to me.
No, they're professors of eugenics.
And that's clearly, oh,
Professors of eugenics. Because the reason why people were being sorted to tell their future is so that we could say who should be having children and who should not, as an extension of Darwinian thinking, I think totally misapplied. And Galton was Erasmus Darwin's grandson, along with Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was his cousin. And 10 years after Origin of the Species comes, Hereditary Genius, Galton's first book, in which he says, basically, if you're white and upper class, you should have children, and if you're not, you shouldn't.
and
And
this
who
is
are the
actually
real enemies? Who are the real enemies of human progress? Jews, Black people, brown people, Native Americans. I mean, just read the freaking book.
and this is all him. This is all him. Yeah.
That's Galton. And Galton created the field of eugenics. And then very soon, here it came. And it didn't prosper just in the UK. It came into the US of A. How many presidents, the American Psychological Association, were card-carrying eugenicists? What percentage between 1892, when it starts, in 1947, which is only 1 year before I'm alive? This is how close this is, right? The answer is 67%.
And I wish it was not.
You never took a course in psychology on the eugenic history of psychology. You never took that course. You can't find the textbook because people just went like this and like this and like this about the dirty history of the field of behavioral science in the dirty history of the field of statistics. And so, friends, when you are doing what you naturally do and you climb inside the clown suits of diagnosis traditionally conceived instead of these empowering processes, you are living out eugenic dreams. This, okay, I'll give you an example. Bleuler, schizophrenia, made up the term. Go read the 1924 textbook on psychiatry by Bleuler. What does he say schizophrenics should do now that he's identified them? He's laid out very clearly what they are. He says they should be sterilized.
And this was mainstream.
Mainstream. I mean, you can't find almost, okay, my heritage, my mentor, my mentor's mentor, my mentor's mentor. Okay, my heritage, just by degrees. I have 2 lines. One, the training I got in my internship, and one I trained back through my PhD mentors. My mentor's mentor was a wonderful psychologist. I mean, amazing psychologist. Started the Midwestern Association for Psychology, which still exists today. He also invented the first infant IQ test.
Infant IQ.
Why?
I think I know the answer now.
Yeah, exactly, so that we could know in terms of what the person's future is, who should be fast-tracked and who should be held back, who should have children and who shouldn't. So it's in every psychologist's lineage, every psychologist. And then what happened? Okay, you want to finish it? What happened? And the reason why we're like this, because we saw the horrors of the Holocaust. Yeah, but the Holocaust didn't start with Jews. It started with mental patients.
Yeah.
In a hidden program. And also people had physical kind of deformities and epilepsy and things. But Hitler worked that out for a few years before even the ovens started with mental patients, and then he knew what to do, and he finally got to people out of my maternal line and my great aunts and uncles, of which I have 8 and only 3 made it out of the Holocaust. Yeah. Yes, this embrace in academic psychology and behavioral science led to laws in the United States of America that allowed involuntary sterilization and so on, that were imported word for word in the early 30s in Germany. Word for word laws that were written in Virginia were imported and gave the structure for the horrors of what we saw. So we're running away from our history. And I'm ending or coming to the end here of the conversation with something that, yes, of course we could explore, but there's a reason why we need to start thinking about behavioral science in a radically different way. We need to actually create a way that we can talk about it so that can be scaled into peace studies and so forth. And it's not what disorder you have. That began with an effort to sort people. It has to begin with what empowers us to be better. Angels of our better nature, as somebody said. You're not going to get to peace or deal with climate change or deal with all these challenges, or frankly, deal with your own mental challenges with more application of the poisonous ideas of the eugenicists turned into the statistical ideas that has so captured the world for 150 years, you can't even have a conversation over dinner without bowing to eugenicists and not know it.
And exactly, and nobody even knows it. Damn.
They don't know it. And then you're surprised at the outcomes. We already saw the outcomes. We're seeing them again. So it's a big agenda, but it's not impossible. We can do it.
Yes.
And we're going to learn how to put empowering processes into people's lives. We are learning how to do that. It's just we need us as human beings to say enough is enough and focus on what works, and scale that into the social challenges that we face. And I think that's what you're trying to do with it. But your book, and why I agreed to come and talk to you, even if your audience is very small.
Yes, sir.
I thought it was a great way to start my day, Kenneth. So